we had to split like the resources of our team to start working on the subnet. And it turned out to be like an extremely good bargain.
And Subnet 65 is a decentralized VPN. What sparked this idea? Why did you guys decide to pursue this idea?
Well, one of our guys, like the CTO, he's basically ran 2 VPN companies in the past, both which actually got acquired. So he's always been really interested about this. And we think like in the world of AI, it actually really makes sense to sometimes bypass geo-restrictions that you naturally run into when you're building in AI. Whether you're prompting like an LLM from Iran or Russia, the output is going to be like extremely different to someone doing it here in Amsterdam or from the US. So it makes like a ton of sense to do it for that or for data scraping or for any other purpose. So he's always built like open source code. So he really wants other people to leverage what we're building so that they can be sort of enabled in whatever they're doing. So that's sort of like how this came to be, why we think that this approach is the best way to go forward.
And when did, you said you split your time 50-50 Taofu and the subnet. When did the idea spark for Taofu and tokenizing the subnet owner keys?
Yeah, so like initially with Taofu, what we wanted to do a long time ago, actually, like in 2023, we wanted to build like an institutional liquid staking protocol for Tau because we saw there was like institutional interest. But there wasn't really a safe way to have like really large bags of like staked Tau that you could then leverage in DeFi. And there was one regulated custodian in the entire market that happened to be from Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And we were looking to work together to basically facilitate this for these institutional players in crypto. And then the MiCAR regulation came out, which is like it made it really hard for us to do this in a legal way. So everything that we had built kind of got destroyed by that. And the custodian that we were looking to work with basically pulled out of the deal. And that made us go back to the drawing board, like at the time. So we had to sort of pivot and we figured out, okay, why not build the whole custodial solution ourselves and then make it like institutionally friendly. And then by the time we did, a DTOW got announced, which really like changed up the game for like all the subnets, but also like for the liquid stake Tau. And we weren't sure if like sort of the variable APY that you would get on your stake Tau would be interesting for institutional players. So we decided to basically quit working on that. And then during a lunch that we had like in Amsterdam, we were thinking about, okay, Pump Fun has been really great. Echo has been really interesting or better, so to say. Like Pump Fun was an experiment, but you saw that people could launch projects through their platform. And then Echo kind of democratizes like the VC funding that you see for like early stage projects. And we wanted to do the same for subnets, but the interesting like dynamics around the DTOW and the subnets themselves. Right now, most of the funding is kind of gatekept between like insiders or people with access, and it's not really open to anybody else. So yeah, we didn't want to do like the pointless token launching, which you have on Pump Up Fund, but we wanted to have them like some sort of utility to make it meaningful. And that's how the idea came up. So what if we just tokenize like the subnet owner part, raise funds for that, and yeah, make it meaningful.
And Matt, you are just at Taofu, correct? You're not involved with the subnet?
I mean, Taofu is kind of the entity that works on both the subnet and the launchpad. So, I consider myself being, involved with both. I would say that my focus has definitely more so been on the launchpad and working with subnets to, partner and have them launch with the launchpad and SNS and tokenize. I think what's really interesting is, Mitch mentioned like the transition from pre-DTOW to post-DTOW. And I think that is really kind of what triggered the light bulb in their head as to like what the problem was, and the solution that Taofu presents is really novel. If you look at pre-DTOW, subnet owners were making a lot of money off Tau emissions. And that was a really great bootstrapping mechanism. It was a great way to fund growth. It was a great way to pay your operations, to pay your salaries, to bootstrap without needing to raise money. And that was really powerful for a long time for a lot of these early subnets. And when DTOW came along, the entire economics of the incentive mechanism completely changed. And so now what was previously where the validators were kind of kingmakers in assigning emissions to the subnets, now it was a completely free open market system where the amount of emissions that you received as a subnet was completely dependent on the price of your alpha token. And with that, it became really, really critical to manage the sell pressure on your alpha token from the emissions and build up your liquidity pool. And so as a result, these subnet owners were still receiving these emissions via the form of their own subnet alpha token, but they really were in a place where they couldn't sell them. Because if you as a subnet owner began selling your alpha token emissions for TOW to pay your bills, to pay your people, to use it as bootstrapping mechanism like you did before, that would create almost some sort of like a debt spiral where it would lower the alpha token price, which lowers your emissions, which lowers the incentive for miners to participate on your network. And then you can kind of create this downward spiral. So we've resulted in this post-DTOW world where subnet owners, in large part, really feel like they can't sell their alpha emissions. And most of them haven't sold any of their alpha emissions. But on the flip side, they still need to raise capital. They still need to pay their bills. They still need to, monetize their service. And that takes time, right? So I think one good thing is that it's really pushed subnet owners to ship products and to think about the business sense of their subnet and monetize their service. But that takes time. And not everyone's in a place where they're able to develop customers, launch a product, generate revenue, find product market fit. All those things take time. And, Taofu presents a really novel way to tap in to the liquidity that you have of your alpha emissions without actually selling your alpha emissions. So what Taofu really is and what SNS or subnet seeds are is a liquid proxy or representation of your alpha as a subnet owner. So we tokenize your 18% owner share of the alpha out emissions, and you sell those to your community as a liquid representation of your alpha, but they also have additional utility that alpha tokens currently don't have. And part of that is a function of being built on the Bittensor EVM, which introduces a lot of, interesting new things that we can do that native alpha tokens can't, such as more cross-chain compatibility, such as other DeFi things that you can build off of SNS tokens, like index funds, leverage trading, lending type options. You also get a variety of perks as an SNS holder that alpha tokens just can't have or don't have. You have governance rights over those alpha emissions. You have, which is a huge selling point or value proposition for validators. You have the ability to vote and delegate those alpha emissions to a validator of your choosing. You also can have subnet specific perks where you get discounted or free access to that subnet service and a potential claim to the staking rewards generated by those alpha emissions as well. And I think there's a lot more flexibility and a lot more value that can be created by the subnet owner in the form of SNS, which makes it a really, really interesting kind of liquid proxy for that alpha. And at the same time offers an opportunity for these subnet owners to generate funding while keeping their alpha emissions intact, keeping a healthy liquidity pool and maintaining a high emission rate.